The restaurant was almost empty on that rainy Tuesday evening. The kind of slow night when the world outside seemed to forget the little diner on Maple Street. Sarah balanced a heavy tray of plates on one arm, while wiping a stray tear with the other. Her shoes were soaked through from running between tables all day, and her heart felt even heavier. As a single mother of 2 young boys waiting at home with a babysitter, every tipped dollar mattered tonight. The electric bill was already 2 weeks late. At the corner booth sat Mr. Harrington, the wealthy CEO everyone in town knew by reputation. He came in once a month, always alone, always dressed in an immaculate suit that cost more than Sarah earned in weeks. Tonight he seemed more impatient than usual, tapping his platinum watch and glancing toward the kitchen. When Sarah finally approached with his check, he didn't even look up. "Give me the check," he said loudly enough for the few remaining customers to hear. "I don't have all night." Sarah's hands shook a little as she placed the leather folder on the table. She forced her tired smile and said, "Take your time." "Sir?" Mr. Harrington opened the folder, frowned at the total, and repeated even louder, "I said the check now." The cook peeked out from the kitchen, and the elderly couple in the next booth stopped talking. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She had done nothing wrong, yet his sharp tone made her feel small. She turned to leave when her foot caught the edge of a wet floor mat someone had forgotten to secure. The tray she had picked up from another table slipped from her tired fingers. Plates crashed to the floor in a heartbreaking explosion of porcelain and food. Hot coffee splashed across the tiles, pasta scattered everywhere, and a glass shattered into 100 pieces. Sarah dropped to her knees instantly, apologizing over and over, tears now falling freely. "I'm so sorry. I'll clean this right away. I'll pay for everything. Please." The entire diner went silent. The cook started toward her with a broom, worry on his face. The elderly couple looked away, uncomfortable. Mr. Harrington stared at the mess, then at Sarah on the floor, trying to gather broken pieces with trembling hands. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, very quietly, Mr. Harrington stood up. Everyone expected him to complain louder or storm out. Instead, he removed his expensive coat, laid it carefully over his chair, and walked toward the counter where the tired cashier stood frozen. Without a word, he pulled out a black credit card and slid it across. "Ring up every single table in here. Aside softly, and add a $200 tip for every server on shift tonight." The cashier blinked, unsure she had heard correctly. Mr. Harrington nodded once. "All of it, on my card. And please bring this young lady a hot tea. No charge." Sarah was still on her knees among the broken plates when she heard the soft clink of the card machine printing. She looked up, confused, as the cashier gently touched her shoulder and helped her stand. Mr. Harrington returned to the mess, crouched down beside her, and began picking up pieces himself. "You don't have to do that, sir," Sarah whispered, stunned. He met her eyes for the first time that night, and his voice was completely different now, gentle and low. "Everyone has hard days," he said. "Tonight, let someone else carry a little of the weight." Sarah stood frozen in the middle of the diner, the hot tea trembling in her hands, as steam curled up like a small prayer. The other servers had already started telling customers that their meals were taken care of tonight. One by one, people looked up in disbelief, then turned toward the man in the expensive suit who was still on his knees, gathering shards of broken plates. An older man at the counter began to cry quietly. A young couple reached across their table and held hands. Something silent and sacred moved through the room, the way grace sometimes does when no one is expecting it. Mr. Harrington carefully placed the last piece of porcelain in the bus tub, then stood and brushed off his trousers. He looked at Sarah with eyes that no longer carried the cold edge she had seen earlier. "May I sit with you for a moment?" he asked gently. Sarah nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The cashier brought over 2 fresh cups of tea without being asked. For a long minute, neither of them spoke. Finally, Sarah found her voice. "Why did you do this?" she whispered. "You were so angry before." Mr. Harrington wrapped both hands around his cup as if drawing warmth from it. He stared into the tea for a long time. 23 years ago, he began, I sat in a diner exactly like this one. I had just lost everything. My wife had left. The company I started was failing. I came in, soaked and ashamed, with only enough change for coffee. The waitress that night was a single mother, too. She saw me counting pennies and quietly paid for my meal herself. Then she sat down across from me, just like this, and said, "Keep going. Someone believes in you even when you don't." He paused, his voice thickening. That small kindness kept me alive long enough to try again. I built everything I have now on the memory of her face. Tonight I walked in here angry at the world, late for another meaningless meeting, and I treated you the way people used to treat me. When that tray fell, I saw her in you. I saw myself too. God gave me another chance to be the person she believed I could be. Sarah felt fresh tears slide down her cheeks, but they were different now, lighter. She reached into an apron pocket and pulled out a worn photograph of her two little boys. "This is why I work double shifts," she said, showing him the picture. "Their names are Ethan and Noah. The youngest has been sick, and the bills keep coming. Some nights, I don't know how we'll make it." Mr. Harrington studied the photo carefully, tracing their smiling faces with one finger. "They have your eyes, Isait Sofli, and they are lucky to have a mother who fights for them." He reached into his coat and took out a business card, then turned it over and wrote something on the back. "If you'll let me," he said, "I would like to help with those medical bills. Not charity." A thank you to the waitress from long ago passed forward. Sarah started to protest, but he gently shook his head. "Please, let someone carry a little of the weight tonight." Weeks passed, and the little diner on Maple Street still felt different after that rainy night. People talked about it in whispers. The wayward of quiet miracles travels. Sarah's boys were able to see the best doctors. Tests were run, treatments began, and slowly the color returned to Noah's cheeks. Every morning, Sarah pinned Mr. Harrington's business card inside her apron pocket like a secret promise she was afraid to believe too fully. One Thursday afternoon, long after the lunch rush, the bell above the door chimed softly. Mr. Harrington stepped inside wearing a simple wool coat instead of his usual tailored suit. He looked smaller somehow, less like the untouchable CEO from the newspapers, and more like a man carrying something heavy in his heart. Sarah saw him right away and felt her breath catch. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked over. "You came back," she said, smiling through sudden tears. "I never really left," he answered. "May I speak with you outside for a moment?" Sarah nodded and told the cook she needed 5 minutes. They stepped onto the sidewalk where autumn leaves danced around their feet. Mr. Harrington reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope. "This is the final hospital payment," he said, "and enough extra to give you and the boys some breathing room. But there is something else I need to tell you." He looked down the street, as if searching for the right words among the falling leaves. "The waitress who saved me all those years ago," he began. "Her name was Emily. She had 2 little boys too. She worked double shifts, smiled through everything, and never let anyone see her cry. One night she told me her youngest was sick, and the bills were drowning her. I promised myself if I ever made it, I would find her and repay what she gave me that night. I spent years looking, private investigators, old records, everything money could buy." Sarah felt the world tilt a little. She opened the envelope with shaking fingers. Inside was a smaller, yellowed photograph, edges soft from years of being carried. It showed a young woman in a diner uniform, arms around 2 small boys on Christmas morning. The woman was smiling the same tired, brave smile Sarah saw in her own mirror every day. On the back, in faded ink, someone had written, "Emily, Ethan, and Noah, minus 2002. Sarah's knees buckled. She leaned against the brick wall, staring at the impossible picture. "That is my mother," she whispered. "She died when I was 12. We never knew who paid for the funeral, only that someone covered everything anonymously." Mr. Harrington's eyes filled with tears he did not try to hide. "All these years," he said, voice breaking, "I have been searching for a way to thank a ghost. God brought me to her daughter instead." They stood there in the crisp air, 2 strangers bound by a kindness that had traveled 23 years to find its way home. Sarah reached out and hugged him. The man who had once frightened her with his loud voice and cold eyes. He held her carefully, like something holy. "Thank you for finding us," she said against his shoulder. "Thank you for letting Mom's light keep shining." Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change someone's world. Years later, on a bright spring morning, the little diner on Maple Street looked almost the same. Yet everything had changed. New paints warmed the walls, flowers bloomed in window boxers, and a small brass plaque by the door read, "In memory of Emily, may every weary heart find rest here." Sarah now owned the place. Having bought it with the education fund Mr. Harrington quietly set up for her. The boys, Ethan and Noah, were tall and strong, helping after school, their laughter filling the space their grandmother once filled with quiet courage. Mr. Harrington, who now preferred simply being called David, came every Tuesday, same booth, same time. He no longer wore suits. Instead, he arrived in soft sweaters, carrying books for the boys or fresh flowers for the tables. The staff called him Mr. David, and children from the neighborhood ran to him for the peppermint candies he always kept in his pocket. On this particular morning, he walked in, carrying a large wrapped box tied with blue ribbon. Sarah met him with a hug, the way family does. The diner was closed for a private celebration. The 10th anniversary of the night, everything changed. Former servers who had been there that rainy evening gathered again, along with customers whose bills David had paid and lives he had quietly touched. The elderly couple from the next booth, all those years ago, sat holding hands, eyes shining. Ibn Tikuk, now gray and retired, came back just for today. David placed the box on the counter and asked everyone to gather close. His voice was steady but thick with emotion. 10 years ago, he said, I walked in here a stranger, carrying more money than kindness. A dropped tray and a brave woman on her knees reminded me who I was meant to be. Tonight we celebrate not what I did, but what Emily started long before any of us knew her name. One small act, offered in secret, has fed hundreds of college scholarships, rebuilt homes after storms, and kept this diner as a place where no one eats alone. He turned to Sarah and the boys. This is for you, he said. Inside the box was a beautiful hand-carved wooden sign that read, Emily's Place, where kindness is always on the menu. Beneath it, in smaller letters, paid forward, 1 heart at a time. Sarah traced her mother's name with trembling fingers, while Ethan and Noah lifted the sign high so everyone could see. Tears fell freely now, not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming beauty of a promise kept across decades. Later, when the sun dipped low and golden light poured through the windows, David took Sarah aside. There is one more thing, he said softly. He handed her a letter, sealed with wax, the kind people rarely use anymore. My doctors have given me a timeline, he said, smiling through the weight of the words. When I am gone, the foundation will continue, but I wanted you to have this now. Sarah opened it with careful fingers. Inside, David had written his will. Everything he had built, after providing for his small staff, would become the Emily Forever Fund, managed by Sarah and her sons, dedicated to single parents and forgotten waitresses everywhere. She tried to protest, but he placed a gentle hand on hers. Your mother saved me once, he said. Now, her daughter has saved me every day since. Let me go home knowing the light she started will never go out. That night, after everyone had gone and the diner was quiet again, Sarah hung the new sign above the door. She stood beneath it with her boys, watching fireflies dance outside the window. Ethan asked, Mom, do you think Grandma knows? Sarah pulled them close and whispered. She knew the moment Mr. David picked up that first broken plate. Some kindness is too bright for heaven to miss. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change someone's world. Share this story if it touched your heart.